Hi, I'm Evan Davies.
And I'm Naomi Regalson.
And our guests tonight are The Cure. They've been in town, and I suppose we'd like to start off with some introductions. Just tell us who you are and what you do in the band.
I'm Robert Smith, and I play the guitar and sing.
And I'm Lol Tolhurst, and I play the drums.
Okay, and how long have you been together?
Since 1976.
Wow.
Yeah, in sort of various formats. And we're a three-piece. I made the first album, and that's the album the Americans got at the moment. And then about 5 months ago, the old bassist left, and we've got a new bassist in and a new keyboard player. So they've only been with, the Cure's only been a four-piece for about 5 months now.
I see. What was it that made you think that keyboards would be helpful to the band? Why did you decide to add them? Especially after the three of you had been together for such a long point without them.
It was just to broaden the sound, really, more than anything. Had different textures and things. We thought about adding another instrument for quite a long time, just after we'd made the first album, because there were things on the songs that I wasn't capable of doing on stage, as well as playing the guitar, like some of the little overdubs that were on it, little melody lines and things. And the songs I thought was starting to suffer, and I thought it seemed a bit absurd to remain as a three-piece just for the sake of it. Like, we were tagged as a three-piece group and see what wonders the Cure can do as a three-piece, but it seemed a bit silly sacrificing the music just for the sake of trying to prove what you could do being a three-piece, and that was never the intention.
I remember seeing the import, the Cure album, out about a year ago.
There he goes, out the door.
About a year ago, and it's been a long time before it came out an American release. How did you feel about that? The long time, it's like that America never
What, do you mean the American album, the Boys Don't Cry album, or the actual English one on import?
The English one on import, or anything of the Cure outside of singles, coming out in the United States.
The American albums isn't the same as you know, isn't the same as the English one. It's, you see, if we'd released the English one over here as like, it's still an import. I mean, the American album's still an import as such. Although it is an American album, it's not released in England. I mean, it wasn't made in America specifically for America. But if we decided to release the first album, which in England was called Three Imaginary Boys, then that hasn't got a lot of the singles on that the American album's got on. It hasn't got Boys Don't Cry, hasn't got Plastic Passion, hasn't got Jump in Someone Else's Train. And it would have been a bit pointless to bring out an album that we'd done sort of 10 months previously without bringing out the singles as well. And it wasn't very feasible to bring out an album and 3 singles in some kind of glorious Cure package, because it would have to be so wildly overpriced that people wouldn't even looked at it. So what we did was take 3 or 4 tracks off the English album that we weren't playing anymore anyway, and that we weren't particularly happy with after a while, and put on the singles and sort of just bring it out as one record.
Yeah, that's one thing, is I've had the import for a while and it doesn't have any song titles on it, so I just have to listen to each cut before I play it on the air or at clubs.
It was supposed to have the titles matching up with the symbols on the label of the record, but we were on tour. It was our idea for the album packaging, but it was executed by somebody else while we were on tour. When we came back, they were all done, and it wasn't quite how we envisaged it.
So originally, there was some little stickers that went out with the album, but they ran out or whatever. So.
I see.
When you're looking through it and you see, and I noticed on one side there are these little, it looks like there should be a guy that says 1 and then a little symbol, but there's no, on the rest of the record there isn't any hint of what the symbols would correspond with.
No.
You used to get really irate letters saying, my copy of the album hasn't got a sticker on it.
Well, one thing I noticed from seeing you last night was there's no shining star, there's no big show, it's just the Cure. I wondered, have you gotten any complaints about that, any kind of like a label from it? What's been the response? Or even why is there no show?
We're keeping away from all the horrible cliched old rock and roll traditions, you see. Because I hate all the things that go along with being like a rock and roll band, inverted commas, which we're not anyway. And especially when you're in a foreign country, like visiting America, you're expected to do certain things. I mean, to an extent, we do like conducting interviews and things like that, which I don't mind that side of it, because it's, you know, people
fairer,
just,
isn't
people
it?
just interviewing you. But the whole thing about going on stage and putting on a show, I think it's really awful. For us, anyway. It's only a personal viewpoint. Although I would condemn all other bands that did it, but I'm just a reactionary. No, I don't. Couldn't go on stage anyway and sort of go, hey, how you doing, New York, and all things like that, because it was really awful. When I go and see a group, I don't expect to see that. I much prefer just to hear, you know, good music. In fact, in a way, it takes away from it. If I go and see someone and I might think their music's good, and then I open my eyes and look at what they're doing on stage.
You think they're stupid?
Sort of, leaping about in the spotlight, thrusting guitars between their legs, and then you think, you know, God. Or you might not think, God, I do anyway.
Maybe that has something to do with the song we're going to hear now, Jumping Someone Else's Train. Okay, that was Jumping Someone Else's Train by The Cure. And I wanted to ask you, that song seems to be like an anthem against all this hopping on the bandwagon, new wave bands.
It was more of a lot of the things that are happening at the moment in England. Or, well, I mean, it was like 3 months ago, but it's still relevant now.
I mean, it's general fashionable trends. That's all. Just
so happens it's black and white now, whereas 10 years ago it was lots of colours. It's all the same thing. Just a different carriage on the same train.
Right, precisely.
Creep.
Wow. Yeah, I just...
Going along those lines of jumping on someone else's train is kind of a reaction to what was going on at the point that you wrote it. Do you do that a lot when you're writing your songs? Like, for example, the frustration of the kids in England, which could be considered reflected in Boys Don't Cry. I mean, is that something, or maybe you don't see that, but when in general, when you're writing the songs, is it basically kind of a reaction in your minds as to what's going on at the point when you're writing them?
Yeah, it's always a picture. Reactionary. It's always a picture. It's a picture of what we see. It's not aligned to any particular thing, but it's always a picture of our feelings.
Jump Someone Else's Train was unusual for a Cure song in that it did actually say something about what was happening outside of a psychotic little world. In the same vein as Grinding Halt say, it's a social comment. But it's not really a social comment, but I mean,
it's a wee bit broader.
Some of the songs they seem to be kind of they seem to be kind of a half instrumental and half vocal, because the vocals kind of trail off at some point. Is that kind of along with what you were saying before about how you're trying to kind of steer away from having, say, the singer dominate the band, and you're trying to kind of give equal weight both to the vocals and the instrumentals when you're recording, when you're performing?
I think that comes about mainly because a lot of the songs are sort of honed down and worked out without vocals, and the vocals are added when the song's virtually there, as opposed to singing all the way through, right from the early stages. I don't do that. Mainly because it's a lot nicer to have a song finished virtually instrumentally and then tailor the words to fit it, to fit the mood of the song, rather than having a set of words there and having to work around them. It doesn't usually work for us doing it that way.
When you're talking about before about capturing the mood of a song, is one of the methods that you seem to employ is an echo effect, both when you're performing and on the record. Is there something? What is it about that effect that kind of catches your fancy as far as helping to get across what you're trying to say?
I don't know. I mean, in a sense, a lot of people would say that repeat echoes have been overworked, but we try to use it in a slightly different feel. It's just that a repeat echo tends to give a certain mood, especially to vocals. Like if things are repeated twice or 3 times, you hear, it's like when on dub, when you cut something off and repeat echo it, you hear a word that isn't actually there. It's that type of thing. That, like if you say crucify him and then cut it off, and then you might get something else coming completely out of it, like in or something.
Is this something
oblique, wasn't it, that one?
Yeah. Is this a technique that you developed during your stage performances, or something that only came out of work you were doing in the studio? or an idea that you had in your head that you decided to put into effect?
We've been using it ever since we've been playing on stage, because we used to just have a little club PA that we used to take around. We used to mix it. I used to mix it from the side of the stage as we were playing, and click in echoes when I wanted. And so it's always been there. We've always used echoes. Just adds a bit of interest, the same as anything else. Really creates a different sound. And
it also makes it very haunting. Like in Subway's song, I get nightmares. I mean, it's a really nice haunting quality.
I get nightmares about that.
Huh? That blood-curdling scream.
Yeah.
Did one of you guys do that scream?
Yeah, I did that. I've never had the same voice since.
When you were imitating Frank Sinatra, you did that scream, it was all downhill.
Well, the tape operator in the studio, whenever it came on, he wouldn't listen to it. He'd run out the studio.
Now, you've been together since 1976. About how old were you when you first started forming the band? Or perhaps it might be easier if we could ask how old you are now and then think back 4 years.
Well, I'm 21 and Robert's 20.
So you were 16 and 17 at that point then.
Yeah, although we had been playing together in like combinations before then, since about 1974. When we were at school, it used to be a good excuse to get out of lessons, saying you were going to practice for the school concert or something, and then we used to sort of go off to the music room, and there used to be a little drum kit there, and we used to just play cover versions, during lessons. So, we've always been, I think we've been playing since about 1974 really, but we've only, not even been serious since 1976. It's got more and more, not serious, but more and more as like taking it seriously, I suppose, since 1976.
What kind of grubby little jobs did you have?
I had a grubby little job. I worked in a laboratory until 1978.
Killing mice?
In the end. No, I was killing them. Yeah. Well, regularly I used to go out and smash a few over the head in the yard and things. And Robert's never worked really. Well, had a job as a gardener for a summer.
Oh, that's hard work.
Yeah.
You're bending over and raking up weeds all the time.
I don't want to tell you that.
Pulling out weeds and. No, actually, I've never had a proper job, because I didn't leave school until I was 18 or whatever. So I hadn't been out of school. Very long before we signed with Fiction.
And one of the first records that actually brought, or I suppose the first record that actually brought you to fame and stardom is the song that we're going to hear next, and that's "Killing an Arrow" by The Cure.